Olani, good morning. Thank you very much for coming through. I'm sure, being a teachers' trade union, when you hear these stories that are coming up now and again of violence in our schools and around our schools, because this latest killing happened outside the school but involving children, I'm sure you are really heartbroken.
First, let me greet you, Praten. Let me greet the viewers of ENCA as well. Yes, we are heartbroken. I must say that it immediately affects on our work conditions. As an educator, when you wake up and you go to school in the morning and you know that there is a possibility that you might not come back, it certainly does impact on your morale and your motivation as well, your morale to go to work and to deliver what is expected of you. So yes, we're actually saddened and quite shocked, by the rise in the incidences of violence in and around our schools.
Everybody we've spoken to in the last week and recently here on Morning News Today about these issues, they speak about we need to attack, so to speak, this problem from different levels. You've got the school itself, inside the school, you've got outside the school, the community and the parents, and then you've got the authorities around different areas. You've got social development, you've got education, you've got the law enforcement agencies. You are proposing now urgent interventions and the meetings. At what level are you proposing these?
What we are saying, Praten, is that we have had a number of summits held at the national level. In fact, I count no less than 3 last year, by the DBE, by the ALRC, I think at some point by SACE as well. But what we are saying is that the conversation must be taken to where it matters the most. And where it matters the most is in the local communities. That is where gangs exist. That is where actually the violence starts and finds expression even at a school level. By all means, Praten, a school is a microcosm of the society. So what we are calling for right now, we are saying that we want the summits to be held at the local level. We are saying communities must all rally together because education is a societal issue. Violence and other things cannot just be left to the learner and the teacher.
And what's the view of SADTU how the issue of drugs should be tackled? Because, for instance, we have no evidence, but there's been reports, for example, since the Forest High incident took place, there are allegations or claims that the sexual favors that are being done among the pupils at school, there are gang activities, as we say, and then drugs. And that, I read this on News 24, and I thought, what? Almost 99% of the school, this is a claim, allegation, is either on weed or some kind of drug, according to one pupil who was quoted by News 24. These are claims, I'm just saying. But when you hear these claims, that people can make such claims, you really wonder, how then do you tackle the drug issue?
Those are claims, Praten, but there is actually some scientific master behind those. I've accessed a similar research as well that shows that in certain areas it is easier. In actual fact, most secondary school learners find it easier to access drugs and other substances during the day. So what we are saying is that schools must be safety zones. It must be difficult for a learner to get into school with substances of any kind.
Well, if schools must be safety zones in view of such, what must be done? Because that means then your members, who are educators, the teachers, and the support personnel are not safe at the moment.
No, they are not. Absolutely not. Now, when we say there must be a safety havens, what we have currently as a country, we've got what we call the NSSF, which is the National School Safety Framework. Now, the National School Safety Framework, it's all good and well. It is something which, if it was to be implemented, in actual fact, it looks like we might start dealing with some of our problems. But now, the trick here, Praten, is for it to be implementable. Now, for it to be implementable, it requires a multi-stakeholder approach to it. And that is why we're saying that education should be treated as a societal matter. That is why SADTU is rallying all of South Africa. We're rallying societies behind what we call the I Am a School Fan campaign, because we're saying that communities must take ownership of school. You see, Praten, as much as you love your soccer fan, we must have the same love for your local school. That's what we are saying. I mean, we have got communities. We know that when we go into community services for a service delivery protest, for instance, a school will be the first place to be targeted as a bargaining chip. Now, that shows you that we are a society in regression. And the only way in which we can start addressing some of these challenges is by then having that multi-stakeholder level at the local level.
So it starts in the home. There's a parent who must be aware what their child is up to and what's going on and show an interest in the school activity. It involves the social work, I guess, that they must come into our schools because we've got psychosocial issues.
Absolutely.
Now, you are calling as SADTU for some of these things to be implemented urgently.
Absolutely. That is what we are saying. I mean, an intervention such as the availing psychosocial services policies in schools within a district or even second level has long been discussed. We have long agreed that this is part of what we need.
But why is it not being implemented then, as an example? Where is the blockage?
But then that is where the problem is, but then that is where we must go into a conversation as a country. And that is why we are saying perhaps that we must also localize this particular conversation, because we can all sit at the national level, have all these summits, etc. But now where they must be implemented, and there must be consequence management as well. Everyone must feel the responsibility. Everyone must feel the responsibility to play their specific role within that particular value chain of education. That is where it starts.
Okay, some of your members, teachers, have been accused of all kinds of things as well, including sexual offences sometimes against school children. And you as SADTU, are you prepared as well to play your role to ensure if a teacher, a member, an educator is accused of malpractice or malfeasance, to make sure that the law enforcement agencies do their job properly?
Absolutely, we are. Firstly, I can tell you, President, that SADTU has got quite a very stringent code of conduct. And our members are aware of it. In actual fact, sometimes we even say it could even be more stringent than that of SAYS, as a matter of fact. So we do have got a very stringent code of conduct. We always call on our teachers to desist from acting in a particular manner. That could be inappropriate relationships with learners, because we are parents when it comes to the school level. So that is what we are doing as a union. We are rallying our members behind behaving in a particular manner. But then I must also say, President, that as a union, we've got a legal obligation to represent members. Now, that does not necessarily mean that we're at the stage where we're going into the merits or demerits of the case. We've got that particular obligation to present our members. We'll make sure that every step is taken through whatever process, disciplinary process, whatever the case may be. That is our responsibility as a union. But I must emphasize that as SADTU, we are always calling on our members to desist from any inappropriate, unprofessional behavior.
Okay, now, just before you go, Xolani, when we're coming on air, we had some unconfirmed insinuations that some people around the school, Forest High School, including parents and people who might be planning to do something violent because of this stabbing. What will your message be to parents? If any parent is watching your interview now, you represent the union that teaches one of the unions that teaches their children. That what would your message be, rather than, if it's true that you are planning some kinds of revenge and whatever, what will your message be?
The best education models have got one common denominator, and that is increased parental involvement. And we have always, as a union, called for increased parental involvement, even in the South African context. We have had a pattern of instances whereby a parents' meeting would be called in a school, for instance, and you would find that there are more teachers and support personnel more than even parents themselves. So we are saying that parents must take an interest, a keen interest, in the education of their children. Do not just relegate that to a responsibility of the teacher within the school. Education is a social issue. We want parents to be involved, because it is only through parental involvement that we can even get some of the early warning signs if a learner is to behave in a particular violent manner at a later stage. So I was saying communities take responsibility.
Thank you very much. Xolani Fagude, who's representing Teacher Union SADTU, and he heads their secretariat.